Middays, we're live in the Element Well studio. We're pleased to welcome now Ty Pinkins, candidate for the United States Senate. Ty, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Gerald. Happy to be here.
All right, so what prompted you to throw your hat in the ring there to run for United States Senate?
You know what? I think that's the question that I've gotten the most over the last 20 months. I've been doing this for 20 months now, but I have been in public service my entire life. I served 21 years in our military. 3 combat tours over 36 months at war. Decided to go to law school after I retired from the military. And when I graduated from law school, came back to Mississippi and started working in some of Mississippi's most underserved communities, working for low-income community members for free, public service. And one of the things that I saw was that Mississippi workers were not being represented well. They weren't being protected. They were being taken advantage of. And for that reason, I decided to run for this particular seat.
Okay. So talk about your run, your literal run. What's that all about?
Man, you know what? What a lot of people don't know is that run, and we're talking about literally running. I'm a distance runner.
Yep.
And that started with my military career. And I was stationed in Baghdad, Iraq. I think it was my second or third tour in Iraq. And I was stationed on this big base. I think it was Camp Liberty. And when I was off duty there, not outside the wire, not working, had my downtime, you know, sometimes you have to figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to take care of your mental health inside a war zone. Yeah. And so I go running around this base at nighttime. People shooting outside, the base bombs falling, but on the military installation, I go running, and the circumference of the base covered about 14 miles. And so I can run and get up to 14 miles or more. And that's something that I started to enjoy over the years. And this was back in, about 20 years ago. And since then, I've been running in Germany and Okinawa, Japan, all over the place. But when I started this campaign, I decided to incorporate running into the campaign, running an advocacy run for health care, for a better economic situation for all Mississippians, our children's education. And I started up in DeSoto County in South Haven. Okay. And started running down Highway 61. And now, this weekend, Monday, we reached Biloxi. We got to the Gulf Coast. I think 577 miles I've run across our states thus far.
That's pretty neat. All right, so you are, of course, running as a Democrat. What sort of support are you getting from the National Democratic Party?
You know what? That's one of the unfortunate and surprising things about this campaign. I've been doing it for 20 months, as I mentioned, and I haven't gotten a whole bunch of support from the National Party, and I think that's strategically a strategic mistake, and more interestingly, it's almost political malpractice. Not to invest in a state like Mississippi, Democrats not to be investing in a state like Mississippi, given the situation we have on a national level where the Senate is split 51-49. You know that as well as I do. Sure. West Virginia's gone. Joe Manchin's retiring. Yep. That Senate seat is not coming back. And so not to compete in a state like Mississippi in a year like this year, I think it's a strategic mistake by national Democrats in not investing in this race.
How would you contrast your philosophy and your approach to government at the federal level, because we're talking about a federal seat here, to that of your opponent, Roger Wicker?
Well, I think one of the problems on the federal level right now is there's a lack of courage going on, specifically around making sure that you're doing the job that you have been hired to do, which is represent the people of Mississippi, all the people of Mississippi, whether you are white, black, young, old, Republican, or Democrat. Mississippians deserve to be represented, and I don't think that's happening at the federal level, particularly in this Senate seat right now.
Have you been paying attention, I'm sure you have, to the presidential race? What do you think about that?
I have. I think it's an exciting race. I think what we're seeing right now is our democracy at work, where we have 2 candidates that couldn't be further away on opposite ends of the spectrum with regard to health care, with regard to how we're going to move our economy forward, with regard to our children's education. So many different issues are on the table, and both candidates on opposite ends of the spectrum. But the beautiful thing about our democracy is every 4 years, everyday Americans get a token, and it's called a vote. and they get a chance to make a decision as to who we want to lead our country. And I think that's about to happen in 56 days.
Ty, would you consider your positions in alignment, in sync with Vice President Kamala Harris's?
I'm a Democrat.
I'm just asking if there anything that you perhaps dissent on or disagree with.
I'm a Democrat. I believe that women should make their own healthcare decisions about their own bodies, and I'm a pro-choice candidate. I'm a pro-choice person. However, I'm more pro-woman than anything. I'm pro-life woman making her own pro-life decision, and I'm pro-choice woman making her own pro-choice decision. I think people need to make their own decisions for themselves. That's where I stand with regard to the abortion issue. I don't think that men should be making this decision for women, and I think that's precisely what happened. Some people can try to sugarcoat it and say that they were simply passing it down to the state to make that decision. No, I think we should have a standard, which we had in Roe v. Wade for nearly 50 years, that women depended on nationwide. And I think you kind of convolute the situation when you say, well, we're going to have this patchwork of laws over 50 different states that women they can't really depend on that. What if you change states? What if you decide to move to a different state? What if you move from your state when you graduated college and you move from Mississippi to Maryland and you got access to health care choices there, but you want to move back to the state that you love, Mississippi, that you grew up in, and be around your family when they get old, but you got to make a decision between whether you're going to make your own healthcare decisions or come back home to your family. And I think it convolutes the situation so much, which is why I think that we need to codify Roe v. Wade so women can make those decisions for themselves.
Polls show that the top priority to voters in this election is the economy. Mm-hmm. Do you align with Ms. Harris' various economic policies? I just reviewed those, as a matter of fact, in the prior segment. Higher taxes, going after companies for so-called price gouging, et cetera. Do you align with those? Do you support those?
Well, I don't think she's necessarily calling for higher taxes for all Americans. I think that's a convoluted approach with regard to what she's standing for. She's not saying that she wants to tax all Americans. She wants to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share of taxes. One, I agree with that. I think that people in the higher tax brackets need to pay their fair share. I do think we also need to protect people, middle class and low income community members, from being taken advantage of and when it comes to price gouging. That's part of the government's responsibility, to protect everyday Americans, everyday Mississippians from being taken advantage of when we come out of something like a pandemic. And we understand that the unemployment rate has lowered. The economy is doing better. We still have to fight and make sure that we lower what's the word I'm looking for?
Inflation?
The inflation rate.
Okay.
We need to fight to make sure that we lower the inflation rate, but we also need to make sure that we're instituting policies to protect everyday Americans from price gouging.
Okay. Do you know of any companies you think are engaged in price gouging at this point?
Well, from my understanding, I'm a dad. I got a 16-year-old and 17-year-old at home, which means I got to go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
I got to buy bacon. I got to buy eggs. I got to buy milk. I got to buy potato chips for kids that want snacks. And you can't tell me that our economy has improved. Everybody says that, whether that be conservative economists, liberal economists, say that our economy has improved, even though we're still dealing with higher than necessary and higher inflation than we want. However, if our economy has improved and inflation has dropped over the last several years, why is it that grocery prices are still up? And so I think there is something to the potential that there's some price gouging going on, and I think that's part of the federal government and the state government's responsibility to look into it and make sure that voters and Americans are not being taken advantage of.
Okay. The other various tax proposals, I mean, you said you think the rich ought to pay their fair share, which is something that she and other Democrats have said. Mm-hmm. The top 1% pay 46% of the income taxes. How much should they pay?
Well, I'm not an economist, so I can't say how much should they pay. What I do know is that in a state like Mississippi, the poorest state in the country, it makes no sense that we have the highest grocery tax in the nation. You're talking about, for me as a candidate running for United States Senate, my job is to focus on what's best for Mississippians. And I think that means making sure that people in the top tax bracket is paying their fair share, and we're not putting that burden on everyday Mississippians, everyday hardworking Mississippians, to pay more than they can afford to pay to live each day.
Ty, appreciate you coming on. Ty Pinkins, candidate for the United States Senate. Good luck with your run, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. Look forward to coming on again.
Folks, we're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.